Cardi-Girls, we're Cardi-Girls. I'm gonna say what we want. The Cardi-Girls, singing from the front. The Cardi-Girls, our mouths are our guns, and we here and fighting, cause it has to be done. We're gonna say what we want. The Cardi-Girls, singing from the front. The Cardi-Girls, our mouths are our guns, and we here and fighting, cause it has to be done. We're gonna say what we want.
Break your friends like
Cardi-Girls, singing from
it's like a bit of a free for all, isn't it? Really?
I think there's an assumption that
For a while now, Jodie, while we talked about something this week.
Yep, absolutely.
We're gonna say what we
First,
want. The
Carlson.
Cardi-Girls. We're singing from the front. The Cardi-Girls. Our mouths are our guns, and we here and fighting, cause it has to be done.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. We had a bit of a thunderstorm a minute ago, which seems really strange. It's not spring yet. Anyway,
We've been
I don't know how
inundated with rain here.
yeah, well, I think we've had a lot of rain too. But there was a little bit of pink in the clouds tonight. Don't they say red at night, shepherd's delight? So,
Yes, red in the morning, shepherd's warning. Yeah.
Yeah, red in the morning, shepherd's warning.
Yeah, well, we had red in the morning yesterday morning, and they meant it because we had 60 mils of rain in a 24-hour period where we are.
Lucky
and
you're on a hill.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's just,
Yeah.
it was so heavy. Just drenched. Like it's just, the ground is just soggy.
Soaked. Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Everything's soaked.
Mm.
Yeah, I noticed that today actually. Up the back we've got this pet pig, Dobby, and his yard. Oh, he's in heaven though.
He would be as happy as...
He's huge. It's probably half an acre, his paddock. I see he does on the sunny days. He goes up to the dry part, but he stomps around in the mud. He loves it. It's just there's so much mud. I don't know what's going to happen in the summer. Might be a lot of dust. Anyway, we'll wait and see.
So with a pet pig like that, he needs access to like wet mud all year round, I suppose, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has. So he's got his own little dam as well.
Yeah.
Bruce built for him. So in the summer, because in the summer, they like to lay in the pool in the water. And then, of course, he's got a lovely little house he sleeps in at the moment, full of hay. And
does he have friends? Like,
he hasn't, but I'm trying to. There's another guy here with just one pig, so I've been trying to get organised, but not in the winter. We'll wait till the spring, till the weather clears up a bit, and see if he wants to bring
play dates. Do they have play dates? Or
yeah, they can have play. They're very big play dates. Sleepover. He sleeps a lot, I tell you what. But he's got a new friend. We've got a wombat. So all of a sudden, we've lived here 20 odd years, and all of a sudden this wombat's appeared. I have seen it once in the entire time, but probably a couple of days ago we saw him again.
Okay.
And there's lots of holes up the back, but we've never really seen a wombat. So I think he thinks he's Dobby's friend, the wombat.
Oh, that's okay. As long as there's someone.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, the cats go up and talk to him, and we talk to him. He's a nice pig. He would just eat all day if you let him. Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, Dobby's a pet pig.
Dobby's
That's
a
him.
pig.
Yeah, so he's great. So,
I guess for tonight was unavailable at the last minute, so we will rebook her for another night. So you've got me tonight.
I think this is going to be great. I think this is a really good idea, and we might be able to get some audience participation in this as well, which would be really, really good. So
I have been invited to make a presentation at a conspiracy theorists night on Sunday night, because the word has got out that I might be a bit of a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I know. I don't know how that happened. I'm shooketh.
Hey, but can I say the trouble is though, all these conspiracy theorists that we are 5 years ago, they're all coming true.
I know. What's the difference between a conspiracy theorist and theory and the truth? 6 months.
Mm.
Anyway,
And also the word conspiracy theory, because it makes you, they want to make you look like a dill or a nut or a nutter. So we know where the word came from, don't we? So it came from when, after JFK was shot, and the CIA, I believe, didn't want people to question. Well, there's another
imagine that.
And so conspiracy theorist. So, you know, it's a bit like mandate. There's some really funny use of words. But anyway, yeah. So, but this night, so who organises it, Susannah? Your conspiracy theory.
The Adelaide Hills homeschool community.
Oh,
yeah. There's
imagine the public doing that.
I know. There's some very, very awake people in the homeschool community.
Which is wonderful when you know that they're parents. Really, really good. Yeah.
So initially I was going to do the Port Arthur shooting. That was going to be my subject of choice. But as I delved into it, it's a bit too graphic.
And there's a lot to build.
There's a lot of talk about spray patterns and bullet casings and who was shot where, and I just thought, no, that's not really, doesn't say homeschool community. So I decided to go with the sinking of the Titanic. So I don't know whether anybody else is aware of the theory that's circulating around it, but after tonight's show you will be.
Yes. It's really interesting because when you think about it, I reckon the last 6 years, all of this has come to fore, hasn't it? So many things. I mean, a lot of people were aware of it. I know they were, but I probably wasn't aware of a lot of things. And then I watched that 10-part Cabal series at the beginning of the pandemic, and that was a real eye-opener. That was... Wasn't it? Oh, a real eye-opener. I'd love to go back and watch it again, actually.
Yeah, no, perhaps we should, because it's been a while.
Yeah, it is. And then sort of it's been 6 years now. And there's the time.
I know.
Yeah. It's gone quickly.
I think back to those days of sitting in my lounge room, knitting my blankets and watching everything unfold and trying to find people.
Do you get the feeling people are waking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More and more. It's almost like it's on speed now.
Yeah, I think so. And they must feel really, really bad because they've been lied to. They've been screwed in many ways. But then on the other hand, there's been some good stories come out of it too, because people have walked away from things that they probably didn't really like doing.
That's right.
And they've found an alternative. Yeah. They're probably happier, and they realise that happiness is really everything. Health and happiness isn't it on everybody's card, wishing you health and happiness? That used to be on all the cards.
Yeah,
and
not wealth and happiness, health and happiness.
Yeah, health and happiness, because if you don't have health and you don't have happiness, you know what? And you've got to have memories, good memories. The good memories bring the happiness. So, yeah. So anyway, so you're going to talk.
Yeah, so I've prepared my presentation, so I'm going to practice on you, okay?
And am I allowed to ask questions? No, because everyone will agree with you anyway.
Yeah, you probably will. But, I mean, surely, if you have a question, please hold up your spoon, Kay.
I will.
But at the end, you can tell me whether you think that people will understand it. When I'm doing it for the group, I'm going to have a laminated piece of paper, and I'll have the key characters written on that piece of paper just for people to refer back to. But I feel as though most people will know the characters in this. Anyway, let's go. So, folklore tells us that the Titanic sunk in April of 1912 after hitting an iceberg while crossing the Atlantic from England to America. Facts that we know for sure. A ship sunk in the North Atlantic on the 15th of April 1912. 1,500 plus lives were lost, and 700 were rescued by the ship, the Carpathia. Anything else is pure conjecture. They're the only things we know for sure. So the official story comes from the White Star shipping line, conflicting eyewitness statements, original newspaper stories that conflict with the narrative, conclusions from 2 official inquiries, British and United States government stories, and a 1958 book, which was then made into a film, called A Night to Remember, which was written by an ex-CIA agent. Nothing sus there.
No.
No. The following is an hypothesis based on research done by John Hamer, and he's an English researcher and author. Anyway, here we go. So J.P. Morgan was a wealthy American financier with ties to the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and he purchased the White Star Line with the full endorsement of the British government because he was a foreign owner. And so he commissioned Harland and Wolff, they were shipbuilders, to build these new luxury liners, and they were called the Olympic class. And so he built 3 ships. He built the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Britannic. Sorry, and the Olympic and the Titanic were almost, but not quite, identical. Now, in what at first might appear to be unrelated, across the Atlantic in America, on an island off Georgia, representatives from J.P. Morgan, Rothschilds and Rockefellers got together to introduce a plan to introduce the Federal Reserve Bank to the USA. And this bank would have the responsibility for the issuance and creation of money, just like the Bank of England in the UK. So they were going to do a copycat. They met in secret because there was a lot of powerful opposition to this scheme from other wealthy businessmen, particularly Isidor Straus, Benjamin Guggenheim, and John Jacob Astor. So these were the richest men in the world at the time, and they saw that it was dangerous to their own wealth. They didn't give a bugger about the common man. They were just worried about their own wealth. And at the time, Henry Ford said, "It is well enough that people do not understand our banking and money system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." Wise man. So it's important here to understand that money created by private interests is not like government-issued money. Every note that comes into circulation has a portion of interest attached to it, which is owed to the bankers. And so this is the reason for national debt. That in turn causes extreme inflation. The interest has to be paid to the bankers. Extreme inflation was dangerous to those wealthy men. It could wipe them out. So they were very opposed to J.P. Morgan and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers' cunning plan. So back to J.P. Morgan. He was also the largest shareholder in the International Mercantile Marine Company, and they owned a ship called the Californian, and it was the captain of that ship that got the blame for the Titanic disaster. So bear that in mind, because it gives credence to the fact that someone was able to manipulate the captain of that ship and the owners of the ship. So J.P. Morgan being a shareholder, maybe there was something in there. So bear that in mind. So in the early 1900s, lots of passengers travelling were immigrants crossing from England to America in search of a better life. And the ships were notoriously overloaded, and the industry was noted for fraudulent practices and for insurance scams. So the first of the fancy Olympic line ships to launch was the RMS Olympic. And that set off on the 14th of June 1911. And so on its maiden voyage, it almost sunk an American tug in the New York harbour. Then, in the September of that year, it had another big collision with a Royal Navy cruiser called the HMS Hawke, and it sustained significant damage. Now, this was not widely publicised or known, but there was a huge hole below the waterline, and steel frames were buckled, and hundreds of thousands of rivets were popped, and beams were bent and distorted. The damage was almost to 1/3 of the ship, and there was, most importantly, there was a twist in the keel that caused it to list to the port side. Steel bracing was fixed to the keel to kind of straighten it up so they could sail her back to the port for further repairs. So remember that bit about the keel, because that is important. The Royal Navy inquiry about the accident found that the crew of the Olympic were at fault. And so the Lloyds, who were the insurers, they declined to pay the insurance, meaning that the White Star Line had to pay damages for both the ships involved. That would mean many millions of pounds was required to be found by the White Star Line. So what did they do? The option was to scrap the Olympic or patch it up. So they patched it up. They took 7 weeks plus the time it was out of commission while they were investigating this. And so JP Morgan and his investors were all bleeding money. It was a huge financial blow. Back on the water, the Olympic had another collision in January of 1912, and that caused severe damage and enormous stress to what was already quite a buggered up ship. So it was berthed at the dock in Belfast for 4 days while they did some repairs. And at the time, the Titanic was in the same dock. So the Titanic had yet to embark on its maiden voyage, but it was sitting there in the water getting prepared to be set sail. So the difference between the two ships were that the Olympic had 16 unevenly spaced portholes and the Titanic had 14 evenly spaced portholes on the forward part of the deck at the pointy end.
Yeah.
So, did they switch the ships in an attempt to claim insurance on the Olympia? So, were they going to sink the Olympic with Titanic nameplates on it, claim insurance?
Insurance,
It's alleged that the hand-picked group of workers were employed over one weekend to make some cosmetic changes to the ships. So you've got to remember, at the time there was no social media, there was no 24-hour news cycle.
No media.
No. So a clandestine operation could have taken place. An urban legend has it that there were stories passed down from father to son of inducements, threats and bribes used to get the workers to perform the switch. Apparently carpets were put down to cover the scratched lino in the Olympic, and there had never been any plan to put carpet in the Titanic. They changed nameplates, life belts and lifeboats. So, Titanic's maiden voyage photos show 16 portholes. The Olympic had 16 portholes. The Olympic had been open to the public for inspection prior to its maiden voyage, but the Titanic was not. Why would that be, we wonder? And there was a bloke who was a second-class passenger, and he survived the sinking of the ship, and he reckoned that the boat listed to the port side, and he tried to bring it to people's attention while they were sailing out, but no one would listen. So then, also interestingly, sea trials of the Titanic were not the usual full-day trials that they would have for a ship. They only did a 1 hour little trip around out off Belfast Harbour and back again, and they didn't test the lifeboats. And there was a coal strike on in the country at the time, meaning that work for ship workers, marine workers, was really scarce. But very few people would sign on to take the voyage. And that's pretty interesting because you'd think that they would jump at the chance of work. So was the reputation of these fancy new ships already blighted? So the Olympic was pretty much worthless as damage was beyond repair. Without the insurance payout, the White Star Line was going to be bankrupted. So then we wonder, did JP Morgan also see an opportunity, because he was going to sink his ship, claim the insurance, to kill two birds with one stone? Did he see an opportunity to get rid of Guggenheim, Astor and Strauss, the blokes who were so against the Federal Reserve? Because if he got rid of them in separate incidents, it would look obvious. But what if he got rid of them in a shipping disaster? Okay. So now let's have a look at this Captain Edward Smith, who was sailing the Titanic. He'd previously been the captain of the Olympic. He had a really shit safety record. He was known to be a real show-off and a pain in the ass. There were 4 other incidents where he had been involved in serious accidents, along with the 3 that we know we had in the Olympic. So was he a dodgy character? And as such, was he coerced by the White Star Line managing director into sinking the ship on the promise that the Californian would be standing by to rescue everyone? It's believed he agreed to the plan providing he could choose his own crew. But what is really puzzling still is that there was such difficulty to find crew, even though there was a coal strike on. So what do they know, hey?
Yeah.
Apparently the chief officer wrote a letter to his sister prior to setting sail saying, "I still don't like this ship." but it was his maiden voyage. So why did he still not like it? It was literally its first sail. Yeah. So the ship sailed out just over half full. And they wondered whether this was because they knew they'd not be able to rescue everyone in case it sunk. So did they deliberately keep it half full? It should have been full because there was a coal strike, so there was fewer crossings happening.
Yeah.
However, another funny thing about it is that this voyage was given huge publicity, even though it was the second ship of this fancy pants new shipping line to sail. So the Olympic had sailed out without much fanfare, but the Titanic, they made a big song and dance about it, and now they wonder whether it was to make sure there were the right kind of passengers on board. Because when it sailed, there was a big representation of American high society passengers, including Strauss, Astor and Guggenheim. Funny about that.
Yes.
50 first-class passengers cancelled at the last minute. Friends and colleagues of J.P. Morgan. And J.P. Morgan just didn't turn up at all. He said he was crook and then was later spotted on the French Riviera having a holiday a few days later. And the White Star Line's managing director's wife also cancelled and saying she was crook, but then she was seen having a holiday as well elsewhere in Ireland a couple of days later. I know, it gets interestingier and interestinger.
Yes.
So the SS Californian, the ship that never came to the rescue but got the blame for the disaster. Interesting things about that ship.
Yeah, who owned that?
It was owned by International Mercantile, the company that JP Morgan had shares in, International Mercantile Marine.
Yeah. Oh, that's the initial.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so despite the coal strike, it left. So there was a coal strike, right? So sailing a ship there were not many ships leaving. So despite that, it left England 5 days before the Titanic, and it was full of coal, despite the strike. But there were no passengers. So why was it being sailed over the Atlantic with no passengers? And there was no cargo. Oh, except for 3,000 woolen jumpers and 3,000 woolen blankets. I know. So all this information comes from...
They're not very heavy.
Hey?
The jumpers aren't very heavy.
That's right. They took the jumpers instead of sheep. So all this information comes from documents that are readily available to the public. And this fellow who's researched it has just put 2 and 2 together. Documents tell us that the Californians stopped dead in the middle of the ice field where the disaster happened. They also tell us that the captain, who was really tall, spent the nights of the 14th and the 15th of April sleeping on a really small couch with his clothes on in the chart room. We don't know why. He also ordered that the boilers to be kept fired up, which was not usual for a ship at rest overnight. And the crew were kept on standby. So was he expecting something? So the Titanic has set sail across the Atlantic, and on the night of the 14th of April, the Captain Lord of the Californian sends messages to Captain Smith of the Titanic, warning him that there are icebergs in the area. But most suspiciously, given hindsight, he tells them the precise location of where the Californian has stopped for the night, which seems like information that probably he didn't need unless there was something suspicious going on. So then Captain Smith, who's has a projected route that he's supposed to be taking, delayed turning west. So he's supposed to turn west, but he didn't for another 10 miles, so that he made sure he ended up right in the middle of the ice field. So, unbeknownst to Captain Smith of the Titanic, the last messages from the Californian didn't get through to his ship, whatever those messages were, because the radio operators got really busy with messages for all the VIPs on board, all their mates sending the messages. Anyway, according to records, there were other ships on the ice field that night, but they were all travelling at regular speed, except for the Californian, which had stopped and shut down for the night, which makes no sense. Another funny twist, Captain Smith of the Titanic decides to sleep on his couch with his clothes on too. So then, At 11:35, an iceberg is spotted by the two on-duty lookout fellas, and they send a warning to the bridge. The helmsman orders that they port around it. So my understanding of porting around it is that there's the iceberg, and you
go around it.
Yeah, but someone inexplicably reversed the ship halfway through this procedure, causing the ship to hit the iceberg. So did the first officer, who was on the bridge and effectively in charge of the ship, have instructions to deliberately guide the Titanic into an iceberg? Because he was a very experienced sailor, so why would he do that? Then, straight after they hit the iceberg, Captain Smith ordered the Titanic to go half speed ahead for 5 minutes. Why was that? Was he trying to get closer to the Californian? As soon as he saw a ship on the horizon, he closed down the engines. Later at the inquiry, the second officer said that the iceberg had been visible for about 2 miles. So the Titanic had a stopping distance of just under half a mile, and that was if it was going at full speed. So why didn't it stop before it hit the iceberg? Contrary to popular belief, there were only 6 witnesses to the actual impact. 4 of them survived, and all of them were working class, just ordinary seamen. So no passengers witnessed it. So the first officer, Murdoch, shot himself dead on the deck of the ship before it sunk. And the sixth officer, Moody, he drowned. So that's 2 down. The quartermaster claimed he saw nothing, didn't see anything. And the helmsman, the minute they got to New York, he was transferred to Cape Town. Never heard from him again. So they got rid of 4 of the 6 people in quick smart. So it was only the 2 lookout blokes, the ones who gave evidence at the inquiry, and so it's believed that they would have been easy to coerce and bribe. So
money.
So here we have the Titanic, and it's standing dead in the water, but it's taking on water. However, there's a rescue ship standing by. The Californian is sending messages to Titanic, telling them where they are. Captain of the Titanic can see a ship on the horizon and thinks, well, there's the Californian. Everything's going to plan. So then at midnight, the Titanic sends out distress signal rockets. And these are seen by the Californian crew. But the crew can see white rockets. So Captain Lord keeps asking the crew, what colour are the rockets? And they keep saying they're white. And he's like, you sure they're white? Yeah, they're white. You sure they're white? They're white. Because he was expecting to see red, white and blue.
Oh, yeah, right.
And so Titanic's later on confirmed that the Titanic did send up red, white and blue signals. So where did these white signals come from? Okay, so it was later discovered that it was actually 19 miles between the Titanic and the Californian, right? So what happened was that the Titanic was sending up its rockets, but because of that gentle curve of the Earth, and that's not flat Earth here, for the sake of the story, let's assume the Earth has a curvature to it. They must have been sending their rockets up, but just not high enough to see over the horizon.
See the horizon. And also blue and red hide would disappear more than white.
Good point. So, but it turns out that there was an illegal seal fishing boat between the Titanic and the Californian, a boat called the Samson. And they were sending up white rockets because they were calling in their rowboats. So they just send out hunters on rowboats to beat the seals up. And so when they wanted them to come back, they'd send up white rockets. So this was found out after the fact, because this guy didn't come forward for a long time because he knew he was illegally seal hunting. So the Titanic sent up 22 red, white and blue rockets that were never seen by the Californian. The Californian saw white rockets and thought, well, I won't do anything because that's not in the plan. So then the question is, did the Titanic actually hit an iceberg at all, given the fact that only 4 people were there to... No, only 2 witnesses survived to tell the story. I think I might have to correct that because there's only the 2 lookout men. So later on, passengers, said that they'd seen a yellow funneled steamer soon after the collision, and it was seen steaming away from the Titanic. And no one's ever said who they were, or they've never heard of it again. So then the question is, did the Titanic hit the steamer and not an iceberg? Okay, so back to the immediate aftermath of the collision. A survivor later reported that officers were telling the passengers that the Californian was on its way to pick everyone up. But of course, at that stage, there had been no contact with the Californian to say that they were on their way. As the captain was still waiting for his red, white, and blue signals, wasn't he? So, but lifeboats were being sent out into the dark, half full. This was questioned after the fact, and it's believed that the reason for this is that Captain Smith believed that the Californian was nearby and would collect the passengers, send the lifeboats back, they'd fill it up again, and repeat and repeat. So there was no real sense of urgency. But then, of course, by the time he realised that the Californian wasn't actually coming, it was too late. At around 5:30, Captain Lord on the Californian had received a word from another ship to say that the Titanic had sunk. So he went full pelt to the area, realising, of course, that he'd missed the signals because the Carpathia had reached the ship by then and was busy rescuing anyone they could out of the water. So the managing director of the White Star Line, he's the one whose wife cancelled at the last minute. Allegedly, he was taken on board and sedated because he was so distressed after the incident, but not before he managed to send 3 messages to his officers in New York. So he was
successful.
Yeah, so he was distressed but not distressed, yeah. And so then they arrived back on American soil, and about a week later they had an inquiry. But at that inquiry, witnesses were only allowed to answer yes or no. They weren't allowed to elaborate on anything. No. The second officer, when he was questioned, was very evasive and was caught lying, and it sounded like he was working from a script. He also reckoned that he'd been in the water for over an hour, but it was ascertained that the water temperature was so cold that you would only last less than 4 minutes. So people didn't drown, they froze to death, anyone who was in the water.
Yeah.
And one of those 2 lookout blokes refused to answer questions and was just angry and arrogant and said nothing of any value at all. Then they brought in some sea captains to give their opinion, experienced sea captains, and they all reckoned that an iceberg the size that they claimed to have hit should have been able to be seen from 3 to 5 miles away, even if it was a dark night.
Yeah, because they're big. Right.
Yeah, so why didn't the ship stop? Why did it just go straight into it? And then they also had people claiming that normal marine procedure was to maintain full speed through icy waters, so why was the Californian stopped? Then everyone came back home to the UK, and all the surviving crew members were, of course, immediately detained, denied access to their union, and made to sign documents that they believed to be official Secrets Acts documents.
Yeah, to zip it.
Yeah. So it's likely that they were threatened that they would never work again if they didn't sign, because of course, in those days, if you didn't have a job, you were as good as dead, and so were your family. Then they held another inquiry in Britain under the auspices of the Board of Trade, which was considered at the time to be pretty stupid, because the Board of Trade regulations were part of the reason that they got in trouble in the first place, because they were the ones who were responsible for regulations about the number of lifeboats, and there weren't enough lifeboats. So why were they holding it anyway? And the venue where they held it was so badly set up that it was impossible to hear the proceedings.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And it was, even at the time, it was considered to be a whitewash. And the newspapers at the time called it a whitewash, which was considered then to be like shock horror, because the media were very pro-establishment in those days.
And owned by the right people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the White Star Line director was cross-examined, and he referred to the Titanic as the Olympic 12 times.
Oh.
I should have found someone smarter than him by the sounds. So the inquiry found that Captain Smith was not to blame, the 2 lookout blokes were not to blame, the design and construction team of the Titanic were not to blame, officers and crew were not to blame, the White Star Line was not to blame. It was Captain Lord of the Californian's fault.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And so the inquiry was deliberately steered that way, and it was quickly deflected from the fact that the Titanic's bulkheads should have been at least one deck higher and that the Board of Trade had signed off on the ship with only a cursory inspection. So then the question was asked, was the British government complicit? Because all of this would have been impossible to do without the collusion of the government. Yes. So the government at the time knew that if the White Star Line and the shipbuilders were bankrupted, it would have huge political repercussions. They had, after all, said yes to the purchase of the company by old mate JP Morgan. Back in the day, like when he first bought it, they'd said, yep, go ahead. The fact that 25 to 30,000 jobs would be lost, plus jobs from dependent industries, there's very little chance that they were going to get re-elected. So let's have a look at the deal that the government had with old mate JP Morgan when they agreed to let him buy the White Star Line in the first place. The agreement was that any White Star Line ship could be requisitioned in the event of war. But at this time, the government knew that war was distinctly possible because, as any true conspiracy theorist knows, the planning of World War I was in the pipeline for decades. And the development of the Federal Reserve Bank was the stepping stone to bring this about. The government knew that if the White Star Line and the shipbuilders went bust, that JP Morgan could seize these assets, the ships, and they'd lose their warships. So, did they fix the inquiries in collusion with the US government? Now, to the wreck. They found the wreck on the bottom of the sea in around 1985, and it's obviously in very poor condition. However, they've found that the marble fireplace from the director's cabin exactly matches photographs of the fireplace from the Olympic. And as we know, no two pieces of marble have exactly the same markings. The Olympic was launched with grey undercoat on the body of it, and the Titanic's was black. But the wreck appears to have grey undercoat. But most interestingly, and this is the good bit, there are longitudinal steel braces on the keel, which are not in the original blueprint. And you will recall, Kay, that back in the beginning, I said to you to remember that they put steel braces on the keel after this first accident so they could limp the ship back to Southampton. So then a photo was taken of the Olympic in 1929, and it shows that it has 14 portholes. The Titanic had 14 portholes and the Olympic had 16. So who of significance died on the Titanic? The three most senior officers, Captain Smith, Officer Wilde and First Officer Murdoch. None of them had attempted at all to escape. They just went down with the ship, which I suppose you were supposed to go down with the sinking ship, but you might have given it a good go, mightn't you, to try it? And those three pesky pricks who were imposing the Federal Reserve Bank, Guggenheim, Astor and Strauss, all met their end in the freezing sea. Gosh, what are the chances? And so the Olympic sailed for another 25 years and was scrapped in 1939. Lloyd's of London paid out the full insurance claim, ensuring the future of the White Star Line and of Harland and Wolff shipbuilders. And in a surprising twist, Kay, the Federal Reserve Act was passed by Congress on the 23rd of December 1913, when most of Congress was on their Christmas holidays.
That sounds familiar.
Doesn't it? This marked the beginning of the American national debt and enabled bankers to fund World War I, which had been planned for decades.
Yes. It's very interesting, Susannah. It was fabulous because when you think about it, there's so many similar things happened with 9/11. They were told not to go to work. When the 6-Day War, actually, I was just thinking, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and a false flag? Because, you know, a false flag is like they used that in that 6-Day War when the American ship was bombed and they were sworn to secrecy, and Candace Owens has actually been chasing the story up. So they made out that the ship was bombed by Syria. So that would allow them to go into Syria. This is in 1968. But then they found out it was actually Israel. And they said, it was an accident. The ship was an accident. If anyone's listening, it's a really good listen from a gentleman that survived, and they were basically sworn to secrecy for 60 years or something, but now he's out talking about it. It's, so many parallels in that story you've just told. Well, it's a story in that. I'm not going to call it conspiracy theorists because I think it's going to get harder for people to make up things because with social media now,
That's right.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how back in 1912, the swapping out of the ships could have been done quite secretly.
Yes, easy.
Like they might have swapped the name tags on the ships around and done it all in the darkness down at the harbour. Who hangs around at a harbour at night time? I don't know.
Exactly.
And anyone the next day might have looked and thought, I thought the Titanic was there yesterday. Oh, they must have moved it during the night. You wouldn't.
No.
And I mean, if you were involved in it, you would be given the fear of God put into you if you mentioned it.
You probably wouldn't question it. We're questioning it because we know how evil people can be. But probably back then, people would like us. They're all working and slaving and just doing what they've got to do and just went about their work.
That's right. And everyone was just trying to live.
Yeah, hopefully now we're becoming that we've got to question more things, and we're teaching everybody you have to question things. And I think people listening to this and any of Michael's work or any freedom thing, I think they are the questioners. Hopefully they are. Yeah, and I think, as you said before earlier on, I think people are waking to it. Because as you were speaking, I said, when you stop to think about it, think about MH, the Malaysian flight that went down.
Yes.
Conspiracy that were people on board that with some special chip or something. There's all these different stories. And then even the two world wars, there's conspiracy about the two world wars. They make money. Well, look, hang on. The one going on at the moment, isn't it all about money? I think they're about money.
What about the stories circulating about is it the Lockerbie?
Yeah, the Lockerbie in the Pan Am flight that went down. I think there's a movie that's been released.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just think to yourself, well, with insurance and money, well, they're only taking the insurance off. It's coming off the people eventually, isn't it, really? So you just think to yourself, the Rockefellers you mentioned, well, we know what they did during the wars. They did both sides and forward, I mean, nothing about what I just wrote and read to you. So I wrote that last night. Yeah, it's good.
And as I was reading it, and I wrote it because I listened to this guy making a TED talk, but it's not a TED talk; it's a conspiracy theorist talk. So But the more I listened to them, I thought that just makes sense, like the fact that the ship was stopped, the California was stopped in the middle of the. Why was it stopped? Why was it empty? Why was it? All those things. Why? They just.
Well, maybe the bad people try and cover themselves, but then they're going to get found out because it happens every day. There's holes in everything, You can find holes in stories, and mainstream media, they leave the holes wide open and seem to think people can't see through it. It's quite remarkable, really, isn't it?
It really is.
It is really, really, really remarkable. What else did I write down when you were talking about that? I wrote something else here too. I can't even read my own writing. But that's the question. What's the difference between a false flag and a conspiracy theory?
Well, I must admit to never being completely having my head around what a false flag is.
Well, false flag is they make out somebody else did it, but we know who really did it to try and cover their tracks.
So
like with the one in the 6-Day War, the false flag was they were going to blame Syria so that they could go into Syria, create a war. However, it wasn't Syria that bombed the ship, it was the Israelis.
Okay, so when people talk about the Bondi shooting as being a false flag.
It's a false flag. They're saying,
why?
That's the question. Who did it?
Right.
That's a good 3 words. Who did it?
Yeah, who did it?
Who did it? Yeah, who did it?
Yeah.
What did it? How? did
Yeah,
it.
so Sean says a false flag is a psyop.
Yeah.
That hasn't helped, Sean.
No,
You're not helping me, Sean. Can you please?
it's
A
like
psyop is a psychological operation, but who does the psychological operation? So is it the good guy or the bad guy?
the people that want you to believe that the opposites happen to what's really happened. I think that's the easiest way to explain it.
So a psyop is, there can be good psyops and bad psyops, and the good guys can do psyops and the bad guys can do psyops. Is that right?
I don't know if there's good ones. I think most of them are bad because they're not truthful. I don't think if it's truthful, you don't need to cover it up, do you? If it's the truth,
Right.
but then not everybody believes the truth is the same. So that's the other.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So
And that's the other word. That's a word I find. But when they talk about soon the truth will be revealed, the truth according to who? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
You have to have the truth, or to have a lie. If somebody says a lie, well, you want the evidence to see what they're saying is true. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then you have to.
You should have.
Do you have to wait? Do you have to wait for your gut? Do you wait for your gut feeling to tell you whether it's true or not?
Well, it depends what we're being told, isn't it? I mean, just think about all we've been told in the last 6 years. Imagine what's been going on for the last hundreds of years, and you think, oh golly, I don't want to think about it. I've only been alive for 70 years. That's enough to deal with.
No, it's quite right.
You know, but I don't think you can do much about it. You just have to be really aware of it, just aware of it, and go, hang on. As you said, your gut feel. The gut feel is so important. Your vagus nerve, you know, your brain's connected to your body organs, which gives you that feel. Does that make sense, or is that right? And the media, mainstream media, just think everybody's going to go along with everything they say. And it's interesting because you read something in mainstream media and go, oh, and you think, hang on a second, I really shouldn't make a decision on this because I don't trust what they say. I need to look a few more places. So, and that's right, Robert, who declares what is true? Well, and you need evidence to prove it's true. And all the things you've just told us, all the little bits and pieces, you put those together. I mean, and normally, isn't it money? The reason everything's done is all about money. It's just human greed. It's horrible. So,
have I ever told you about the time that I first, if I'm repeating myself, stop me, okay? So I used to work for Channel 7 News when I was a young mother. I was a producer's assistant in the newsroom. Oh, yes, Sean, jabbing penguins is a psyop. Yes, thank you. That explains everything. Thank you. Well done, Sean. Sean wins the free balloon and the set of steak knives, which the best comment tonight. Thank you for that. Yes, I used to work in the Channel 7 newsroom, right? Try to get this story in the right order. And it was back in 1994, and we just had poker machines introduced into South Australia.
oh, okay.
And my son had just been born, and we went out to dinner with some friends. And because I was a breastfeeding mum, I took my son in his baby capsule with us. And we were sitting in a lounge of a pub in Norwood here in South Australia. And I had him in the capsule next to me with like a blanket over him. He was 6 weeks old, I think. And I was told that I had to leave, couldn't stay because there were poker machines and they couldn't have infants or children around poker machines. And I was like, well, he's not going to play the poker machines. He's only 6 weeks old. Right? And they're like, no, you have to take him into the front bar or you can't be here at all. And the front bar was a bit of a bikey bar. Anyway, so we left and went home and thought that was pretty disgraceful. I think it was the second or third week that poker machines had been introduced to South Australia. Anyway, so I went to work the next day and I was telling them at work what had happened. And it coincided with National Breastfeeding Week. And so they said, oh, this is going to make a really good news story. So they did a news story, and they interviewed me, and I told my story of how I'd been kicked out of a pub for having my baby with me, and I was only trying to do the right thing. I was only trying to keep my baby with me so I could breastfeed him and not leave him home with the babysitters and give him a bottle. Then we had the Breastfeeding Mothers Association come on and applaud me for being a fabulous mother, and you can picture the story. And it went to air, and it was terrific. And then the Sunday Mail rang me the next day and thought they'd like to do a follow-up on the story because breastfeeding week, marvellous story, oh terrific. So they came out to my house and took a photograph of me and my little baby, and I talked about breastfeeding and the importance of breastfeeding and how I, learned all the things I knew about breastfeeding, blah 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 blah. And the next Sunday, I opened the Sunday Mail, page 3, a picture of me and Cameron. The caption: "Pokey Mum, Pokey Mum, Pokey Mum." Never touched a poker machine. Pokey Mum evicted from Pokey Lounge.
Oh, well, that's just typical. It's just typical. Disgraceful.
And that was then that I realised that the media was absolutely fucked. It was a very nice photo. Very nice photo. I credit where credit's due. It's a lovely photo, especially when I look back at it now and I look so young and fresh-faced. But honestly, the bullshit, the absolute bullshit. It was just nothing in the story was anything. We weren't there playing the poker machine. No, we weren't there playing the poker machines.
Imagine if they did try to do that now to you with a newborn baby. Oh, goodness me.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a lady today walking along the street. It was gorgeous. There was she had a tribe of children, and her and her husband, and she was walking along breastfeeding while she was walking. I thought, that's a good idea,
Yeah.
She had,
my daughter,
they looked like the kids were from, about 13 down to about 4.
Yeah, well, needs must, I suppose. Needs must. I mean, she'd never get anything done, would she, otherwise?
No, you wouldn't.
No.
You wouldn't.
I mean, my daughter's about to have her 4th baby, and I can imagine that she's going to be breastfeeding on the run.
She will be busy. That's exciting. Well, we got a new grandson. He's very cute.
What's his name?
Brooks.
Brooks, that's right. You told me. That's a lovely name.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. He's very cute.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be a fourth granny for the 4th time.
Oh, that'll be lovely.
Shall we bring Michael on to tell us his duck story before we go?
Michael, because we said Michael could come on if he wanted to. He was worried we mightn't fill up the time, but we did. That was really good.
We did. Are you there, Michael, to tell us about the duck?
Michael, where have you?
I think where's he gone? You there, Kelly?
Oh, they've left us.
And here's me thinking that they sit and watch us and listen to our every word.
They're making
their dinner. He's only
doing something.
Picture in my mind of him being glued to the screen, not listening to our every word. God.
We could have been saying better things.
Nag.
Hello.
I didn't know you worked for Channel 7.
Yes, you
Maybe
did.
You told me, I forgot.
Yeah, you did. You did. I told you that the first time we met, but I don't expect you to remember everything.
Back there, they could probably do with someone like you back there now.
Yeah.
Now I can hear everybody else except you.
Okay, so the duck stories. Kelly and I, it's very expensive now. It's some caravan parks in Perth now are $90 a night. Up north in the Kimberleys, my sister's up there at the moment. They're like $120 a night. So we're camping rough a lot, and you're not allowed to camp rough in WA. It's like if you're within so many kilometres of a caravan park, legally you have to stay there, even though you can't afford it. So we're camped in this really remote bush that I found, and we've been going back there several times. Anyway, went for a walk, and there was all water around, it had been raining, and this little duckling just came right out of the swamp and ran up to me with its little arms open as though it had been looking for me all its life, which was probably I'll just get something on. Yeah, so it was looking after me. So so it was probably maybe an hour old or something. It was brand new. So like Dr. Seuss, "Are you my mum?" And it thought I was its mother.
The
So we took
snort.
it back to the,
The snort.
took it back to the bus. It was on my ear. It was nibbling at my hair. It was seriously cute. And we didn't know what to do with it. Mum's got a pond, and I said, "Hey, can we bring a duck?" No. So what are we going to do in a bus with a duck? And so I went back to where we found it, and I was just looking at the swamp, and he or she was just going around me and just quacking in this little voice, and I was thinking, come on, universe and God, just let its mother hear it, and it'll be a great story. And then it was getting dark, so I said, "No, come on," and I turned around and I stood on the fucking thing. And the next minute, it was just like spread out on the floor, face down, trying to crawl around, but it was all obviously broken up. And so I had to do a euthanasia, involuntary euthanasia. So
Did you vaccinate
the
it
moral
first?
of the story is, if you break out of a shell and you see me, do not assume that I am your fucking mother. I do not have many maternal skills, and I am rather
Michael.
clumsy. And
that's
the
just
duck is
terrible.
fucked,
That's just
basically.
Oh, that's
a really
awful.
awful
I was
story.
devastated. I had to go back and tell Kel.
Oh my
God.
God.
And she probably thought I murdered it because what I was going to do with it. But I actually just effed up. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, poor little thing.
Yeah.
Sorry that
Unless
happened.
I am duck flu. Unless I am the bird flu. I actually am the bird flu.
Maybe that's what happened to its
Yeah.
mother. Maybe that's what
Yeah.
happened
No,
to its
his mother's probably died of bird flu, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Or
definitely.
I'm bird flu. You got to get vaccinated against me. So I don't know. But
Poor little duckling. Oh, well.
and now we're waiting for Reiner to call.
Okay, well, we'll go.
I don't know, hopefully in about 20 minutes. But no, you
Okay.
girls are great. Look, I think conspiracy theories, we're all waking up.
Mm.
We're all waking up. The world is not as we assumed it is. Nothing makes sense.
No.
And I think what you are doing, what Tom or all the Cafe Lockdown podcasters, all the podcasters are everywhere. This is people, they're like the front runners. Basically looking at everything going, this is bullshit. You know what I mean? You got that woman in America now who's murdered her kids, and the women are raising millions for her like she's some savior or something. She murdered her children, and it's just,
No.
So I think we're in a time where if we get through this, we're going to actually end up in a better place, because
Definitely.
we're going to just basically go F off to anything that's bullshit.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
know what's right. We've been tested. We're not buying it. Men can't become women. It's a joke. Even Sal Grover, they threatened Sal Grover with death. So some man out there who thinks he's a woman threatens her to shoot her because she won't accept that he's a woman, which he isn't. And that person is supported by all these women who for some reason think they're doing the right thing by basically destroying all their own rights that other really strong women have fought for. So yeah, it's we're in this strange time, but I feel that common sense is rising up. And like you, Susannah, I'll never forget you. I know I don't remember Channel 7, but what I'll never forget you is that you put the QR code in your chemist on a sliding door, and people were just trying to. I'll never forget that. That is a true urban terrorist, basically. Just
That's what,
shoving with the madness.
when I die, we can have that on my headstone.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's right. We should do it
A
with
QR
AI. It'd be
code.
funny.
We can have a QR code on my headstone that takes you to the story about the QR code on the door.
That's right. And the fly. There was a fly stuck on the quiz, and the people said there's a fly on the QR. Okay. And you never cleaned it.
No, that's it.
I tell that story a lot. It's good.
Yeah, quite proud of myself for that. Okay.
Yeah, and well done on what you girls do. We're going to redo the front, but people love you girls. They love you. You know, we met this 50-year-old, he's probably 52 now, painter, you know, living in Brisbane. Some a great guy. He's got all your merch.
No
Loves
way.
you guys. Yeah. What I think it is people like listening to common sense. And both of you just call it out. If you don't if something doesn't make sense, you just call it out. And I think people find that incredibly refreshing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? You know, you're both powerful women. What are you going to do? You're going to take them on? Good luck. Okay, with the Victoria, please, good luck. You know, so, yeah, I think you're a very powerful team.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Congratulations on what you've done. Yeah.
Great.
This is how we
Always
fight.
Well, hopefully I'll get through to Rhineck tonight.
Yeah. Forward to that.
Yeah, but last night was amazing. You know, the jail screwed up they had the right number. Obviously, they didn't want him to do the call. So we waited, and I said, we're waiting for Rainer. We've got 700 people watching that we know of, and lots more on VPNs and other stuff. But there's a guy called Troy, who I met in Port Lincoln, who used to be a muso or a DJ, and then he stopped, but he saw what I was doing was AI. And then I said to him, just on air, I said, you should write a song called Waiting for Rainer. And just before we finished the show, he sent it to me. He did it. And now it's thousands and thousands of people have heard this song. And it's incredible. And so we're doing this as a community. It's not just we're entertainers. These people here, like the quiz show, people are loving the quiz show for the comments. So we're actually, as a community, we're entertaining ourselves. This is the seeds of a new community. And we care for each other. We fall down, we pick ourselves up, but we like common sense. We like it. We don't.
And strengthening community too. It's strengthening community.
How about we go out with a song? Because we did a video today.
Yeah.
Because, and this shows the power. That's why I say AI is not all that bad. Troy, AI, I don't think anyone knows how it works, and it's our weapon as much as theirs. So I think we should learn it and use it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so going from there. So the song's here to go out with. You want to hear it? Or you got anything else you want to say?
Yes.
No, goodbye everybody.
But he wrote this literally and produced within the show, like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Looking forward to hearing this.
Yeah.
See you soon, everyone.
Yeah.
They took you past the courthouse gate with winter on the stone. You raised your voice when others bowed and faced the cell alone. A folded letter in your coat, a photograph of home. The guards can lock an iron door, but they can't own what you've known. We're waiting on Rainer, a good man standing tall, for every hand that would not bend, for every voice they stall. The years may mark the calendar, the walls may hide your face, but truth is walking toward you still, and freedom knows your name. Your mother keeps the kitchen lights until the morning train. Your brother reads the news aloud and says your name again. A little flag beside the sink, a cup you used to hold. Small things become a kind of oath when courage has a cost. We're waiting on Rainer, a good man standing tall, for every hand that would not bend, for every voice they stall. The years may mark the calendar, guy. A nation hears the quiet ones who chose not to comply. And when the heavy doors swing wide, we'll meet you in the rain, not as a symbol carved in stone, but as our friend again. We're waiting on Reiner, a good man standing tall. You kept your heart when power came to make the brave feel small. The years may mark the calendar, the walls may hide your face, but truth has crossed the border now, and freedom knows your name. Keep the kitchen light on, keep one place beside the flame. We're waiting on Reiner, and freedom knows your name.